and welcome to episode 1 of ILTV. I'm your host, Lynn Ferrari, and today I am joined by Winton Churchill. Yes, you heard that right, Winton Churchill. He's an Earn From Anywhere guru who has been living and breathing his own teachings and techniques for almost 2 decades. I have worked in collaboration with Winton on multiple projects over the last couple of years, and he is a super interesting guy with a ton of knowledge on how to earn online so you can bankroll the life you dream of and really get away from the traditional 9 to 5. Winton believes that everyone has a hidden profit center they can tap into if you know how, and that is what we get into on this episode. So make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on any future videos. And enjoy the episode with Winton. Winton, hello. Welcome to ILTV. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Lynn. Good to be here.
Great. How was your morning so far in sunny Mexico?
It's beautiful in Cordoba.
Yeah, I'm sitting in Ireland here. I'm based in Ireland, as you know, and I'm not going to lie, it's been pretty nice, although I'd say it's on the cooler side, but at least it's sunny. I can deal with a sunny, crisp winter's day.
Yes, that's a plus. Sun is good, vitamin D is good, and
exactly.
It's sunny here as well, and it's also about 72 degrees this morning, which it won't get much warmer than that during the day. So it's like being in an air-conditioned room. It's gorgeous.
I would take that any day. Okay, so Winton, tell me a bit about your story. How did you start in this freelancing side of things? Give me a bit of background.
Sure. Well, as fast as I can, I worked for a number of different technology companies in my career, and about age 50, you start aging out of corporate kind of things. You don't get the plum assignments. You kind of get sidelines from some meetings, and it came along that I realized that I didn't want to put up with that, and I started investigating working on my own as a freelancer. And a freelancer has been around for many years. It's a concept that has really come into the fore over the last 25 years, basically. And I joined a job and project network 21 years ago, I guess it was now. And so began working in these job and project networks and understood how they work for freelancers. And this was great because I could hire people remotely. I could work remotely, lots of different options. And then fast forward to 2007, I moved to Mexico. And a lot of my friends that I'd worked with and known in my career and in my neighborhood and that kind of thing knew that I had made this move. And they, in 2007, they said, "You're crazy for moving to Mexico." And then in 2008, when the financial downturn happened, they started calling me and say, "Tell me what I might be able to do online. And how are you making money from a beach in Mexico?" And so I helped a few of them get going. And I found that with all the emails back and forth, one of them said, "Hey, you ought to turn this into a course." And of course, I had all the email explanations of what to do and how to do it and what link to go to and that kind of thing. And that's ultimately when I turned, what I taught them how to do into a course.
So let me get this right. You were working full time and you started exploring your plan B, I guess, which was your freelancing side of things. So you did that alongside working full time.
Yes.
Right. Got it. And so into the meaty stuff, you might tell me a little bit about what you call a hidden profit center. Go into that a little bit for me.
Yes. Well, this is the one thing that most baby boomers don't realize, and we know this because of the work we do in our coaching. And when I talk to somebody, they say, "Well, what could I possibly do online?" They just don't think they have any skills or the ability to do that. I remember talking to a dentist that said, "I can't fill teeth online. I can't, whatever." And, but every baby boomer, every person over 50 has decades of experience. It's skills, knowledge, wisdom. And that's what we have to do, is break that occupation down into its component parts. And so that's where we where we start with all that. And then they go on to these job and project networks. That's what we teach how to do and how to find work. And it could start out as simple as proofreading. I mean, we like to talk about do something that you could do in your sleep. It might be proofreading a document. It might be writing a post for Facebook, 50 words, just very simple stuff. So you get the feel of this because it is different from your career. But for most people, once they get over, the transition, then their natural instincts take over, their skill set takes over, their knowledge. And the other part of all this is that if you're over 50, you've been solving problems successfully all your life. And each of those problems creates a template for solving similar problems. So you know how to, help out. You get the big picture more so than most. And, that's a good thing. So the buyers appreciate that in addition to the work ethic that, 50 plus people have. And so the idea is you do a simple job like proofreading and somebody posts the job, you tell them what you would charge to proofread that among others. It's a bidding environment. And then when you win the bid, you do the job, you submit the job to them, and then money drops into your bank account from this online system, which is in essence operates as a bank. They have an escrow thing. So the money, comes out as soon as the job's assigned to you, the money comes out of the buyer's account and is sitting there waiting to drop into your account as soon as the job is complete. And what most people don't know, and what I knew as a freelancer, is I'd spend as much as 30% of my time when I was freelancing chasing money from clients, right, just because that's kind of what happens.
So this is all done through private closed door sites, right?
Yes. Right. There are about 150 sites out there now. In the U.S., freelancers account for over $1 trillion in the economy. And in the site that we teach on, which is called Upwork.com, they did over $3.5 billion of funds paid out to freelancers in the last year. So this is big business. It's not, kind of the old stuffing envelopes kind of thing that, you'd see classified ads on in the past. This is a big, vibrant thing.
And so you mentioned proofreading. Can you give me other examples of how people are using this to make money?
Yes. Part of it might be writing articles. And a lot of people say, well, gee, I never wrote articles before, but I did a lot of business writing and people always told me my writing is good. And we've seen lots of people come through our program, kind of go down that path. Other people do things like create PowerPoint presentations for people. And, like many of us, we lived in PowerPoint for a decade or two. So that's another way. But there's also things like customer service jobs, which is not what we think of as a whole bunch of people sitting in a room talking on a phone. Most customer service today is done by email or customer service ticket systems. So it's like email and it's answering questions. And when you take on a customer service job, most clients provide you with very good training about what to do, sort of standard responses to give back to people and that kind of thing. So it's just this whole remote work thing. They're outsourcing anything that they want to have done in their organization.
Yeah, and so I guess it's just smart, right? People talk about multiple income streams, and
Yes.
We're in uncertain times. It may be fine, it may not, but this is really giving you that plan B, right? That people can do
Right.
on the side,
Yes.
like you,
Yes,
that you are
absolutely.
still working. Yeah,
Yep.
so it's not something you have to jump into a full-time. You decide how many hours, etc., right?
Right. It's a nice, easy on-ramp, and that's the thing that most people get. It's not like jumping into the deep end of the pool. You can do a little or you can do a lot. it's like a faucet. And even once you're freelancing, if you want to travel for a month, you can say, hey, I'm taking my shingle down for the month. I'm going to be out of town or whatever it is. And then when you get back, you turn it back on and start working.
I love that because, like, say you're not a morning person, don't work in the morning,
Yeah.
do something nice to set you up for the day, go swimming or whatever it may be, and then work in the afternoon. You decide, right?
Exactly. In surveys that are done about freelancing, and I've been seeing these surveys for 20 years now, the number one thing that people like is time freedom. They get the chance to set their own schedule. So typically, most of this work is even the customer service work. They say, we just want you to log in for 2 hours a day and answer questions and do whatever needs to be done. And you can do that on your schedule. You can do it in the morning if you want. You can do it in the afternoon. You can do it in the evening, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess if there's one thing the pandemic taught us, it was the importance of owning your own time, right? That
Yes.
all of a sudden we were all remote working and we realized we don't have to sit in traffic for 2 hours a day. We can be at home in our own space and work our own hours. Once the work gets done, who cares? It's
Yes.
super. I think that was one of the great things, I guess, that came out of that whole scenario. But yeah, of
Yes.
us just realizing the importance of owning our own time.
Yes. Prior to the pandemic, a third to a half of my day is explaining you could actually work remotely. Everybody around the world has now had that lesson, and so I don't have to talk about that as much anymore.
We're set up and good to go now.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And so, right, some things I just took note of. So Salesforce is set to cut 10% of its staff. The Wall Street Journal is talking about a white-collar recession. And Yahoo Finance just wrote layoffs are sweeping corporate America for 2023. So in the midst of crisis lays opportunity. What opportunity do you see here with this situation?
Well, every time somebody leaves a company, there's potentially work that's not being done. I mean, they're making those layoffs based on, reduction in their business activity, that kind of thing. But they don't really know. And I just read an article for Bloomberg that came out right at the end of last year that talked about this survey that 75% of businesses are now hiring freelancers in favor of employees because they can typically bring a freelancer on in 3 days. They can typically, the freelance relationship is not like the relationship you have with an employee. There's all kinds of things to do when an employee leaves your company, but a freelancer can be sort of turned on and off like this faucet. And a lot of times you can get a higher level of expertise from a freelancer than you might get from an employee that you're asking to do a different skill that they might know a little bit about, but they're not completely familiar with it. So for that reason, just bringing in that high skill freelancer to tackle that specific job for however long it needs to be tackled. And then they go away and do the same thing for other companies, and you don't have to maintain that person on the payroll. So just these layoffs are quite the boon for the freelancing world.
Yeah. And so you mentioned a couple of benefits to earning in this way. Some of them, getting away from the 9 to 5, but what other benefits, or just how easy is it to set yourself up with this?
Well, the easy part is you get started. It's, as I said, it's an on-ramp, and you can make the on-ramp as steep or as shallow as you want it to be. And so you set up a profile. That's step one. And a lot of people think, oh, I'll just cut and paste my resume. Well, a profile is pretty different from a resume. Unlike resumes that focus on chronology, the profile focuses on your skill set. So you don't put anything in there that's not related to the skills that you're going to provide on the system. So that's one of the big differences. And then it is a bidding environment, and there's 200 to 300,000 jobs on the one network that we train on that are there every day. So you can't possibly review that many jobs. And forming a good search strategy, you'll use certain keywords that will help bring a dozen to 24 assignments to you so you can pare down that big number. And that's what our goal when we train people to do that. And then writing proposals. The great news about proposals in this environment is they're very short. And when I work for some of the companies I work for, proposals in some cases were thousands of pages. Now proposals in this environment are 150 to 250 words. So it's very succinct, very brief, that kind of thing. And so that's how the process goes, and that's how you start. And you know, people are turning to freelancers like never before. I mean, this is a multi-year trend. It's thought that over the next 4 to 5 years that the total number of freelancers will exceed the total number of employees in most of the world economy. This is not just a US or Canadian phenomenon. It's around the world. So freelancing is a thing that's, here to stay.
Not going away. And so what exactly do you need to get started?
Well, a lot of people start with their resume and distill their skills, what we call their skills, which are things like I know how to use Word, I know how to use Microsoft Office generally. I mean, if you're using things out of that, I know how to manage relationships. A lot of managers have that relationship management skill. And then there's higher order things for many white collar workers. They have skills like project management. A lot of them I talk to don't know that they do project management, but that's in fact what they do. They're working on this project here over a period of time and that project there over a period of time. And when one project ends, another one begins and that kind of thing. So anybody that's got those project management skills, those good communication skills, very important today. The skills to jump on a Zoom call and help people manage that. Those are all things that are in demand. And then there's very complex skills. A lot of the jobs start out at maybe $25 for doing something simple. But what that freelance buyer is doing is they're really auditioning you to see if they'd like to work with you on an ongoing basis. Because when I interview freelance buyers, they say that the biggest misconception that freelancers have is they want to do this one job and go away. No, if you have the chops to do that job and other things related to that job, they want to continue hiring you as much as possible. And that's what we teach in our programs is you cultivate 3 to 6 clients that you're working with on a regular basis, could be weekly, could be monthly, that kind of thing. And then if one of your clients drops out and things change and companies merge and freelance buyers move on to other companies, you know how to go back in to the system and pull out another client that you're going to be working with on a repeat basis.
Right. You've mentioned researching. I think that's
Yes.
the one that seems most, easy. I don't know if that's the right word, but that
Yes.
To me, that one is the most attractive one to start with. Can you tell me about researching a little bit?
Yes. Well, we created that product because a lot of people that came into our program would say, I don't really want to do proofreading, or I don't know how to use Excel, or I don't want to write an article. That's just not me. But researching, we all Google every day, and our course on researching goes into much higher order skills and things like the questions that you ask a new client that has a research assignment. But a lot of this research is done through Google, and it's knowing which database to use and which system to go into and how to segment Google. What most people do is they just open up Google and they type in something, but what they don't realize is there's quite a few what are called operators that Google lets you use. These are sort of code words that make searching much more specific. So you could go back and say somebody wants to know about what were the articles written in the New York Times about a certain drug when it was introduced. between this date in 2001 and that date in 2002. So you can very specifically do that. And then, of course, a funny thing happened the first time I did a research job. I requested a research job and hired somebody to do it for me. And what they did is they typed in the information that I was searching for, and they produced hundreds of results, and they cut from Google. You know how it is when you just put a general search in.
Right.
They cut and paste those results into a Word document and sent that to me. And the big thing to know is that information was not actionable for me. What somebody that's buying research wants to know is, what are the, out of all this information, what are the top 10 things I should be paying attention to, and which one should I take action on? And so that's what we teach in our course. And that's why learning those skills for people that don't want to write or do proofreading, it's so exciting, and it's very well paying, because basically the person you're working for is saying, I could sit here at Google and fish around for this stuff, but my time is worth money. And if it's a manager and executive, it could be, $50 to $150 an hour. And so if you can do research, you can, help save them that cost of their time, and they can be working on the things that drive their business, and then folding the research that you provide to them into their future plans.
And so give me an idea of a researching gig that you would
see. A few that I've seen is a company wants to expand into another market. And let's say they're in the pet store business, and they say, well, how many pet stores and where are they located in this adjacent community? So that would be an example. Another one is a fair amount in the medical area, people looking for alternative treatments or clinical trials or that kind of thing. So that's another popular area. And then a third really popular area is looking for best practices. Coming out of the pandemic, all the rules are being rewritten. How do we deal with employees? How do we provide safe spaces for our clients to come into our business? So going out, and a typical one might be find 20 best practices for somebody in the retail industry, the retail apparel industry, or something like that. So those are the kind of things that people typically research, and then there's an infinite. Every time I hear a story from one of our members about what they've done on a research assignment, it just boggles the mind. In fact, one funny one is there was an author that put up a research job. They were writing a novel, and a part of the novel dealt with the time period in Boston in the 1600s. And they wanted somebody to research for them, what was it like to live in this time period in the 1600s? What did they eat? What did they do on a daily basis? What industries were popular? That kind of thing. So there's just amazing variety.
Exactly. And another one you talk about, which is really interesting, is teaching English.
Yes. This is by virtue of you speaking English. That's something that's in demand around the world. And we increasingly see people from around the world outside the English-speaking community want to sell their products and services in the English-speaking community. And so there's a glitch there. And just in terms of speaking English, one of our most successful freelancers found a job preparing students outside the United States that don't have English as a first language, that had won scholarships to various universities in the United States. They have to pass a proficiency test, both in conversation and writing. And she would coach various folks on how, it might be 6 hours, it might be 8 hours, it might be several months, but she would help train those people to be able to pass that proficiency test. So that's an example of that right away. Another example is we see people from abroad business people coming to speak at conferences, and a lot of times they want to work on their presentation. They want to deliver it in English. They want to make sure they're using the correct idioms, that kind of thing. They want to make sure their pronunciation is correct of the, they might say a city name wrong and nobody's going to understand what they said. So they want to practice their pronunciation. So that's another good example of that.
I was actually speaking to Jessica Ramesh. She'll be
Yes.
on this series as well.
Great.
So a little bit after you, but she was actually saying how when she first moved to Panama that she taught English.
Oh, very good. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. She did it through
Yeah.
a school, but she also did it online, and she also did it, a little bit with just clients that she kind of picked up. But I thought that was interesting. That she,
Yes. Every time I'm in Mexico, all my friends want to practice English. They just want to talk in English and improve that skill, because English is the language of opportunity. I mean, it's
right.
undeniable that the English speaking world economically is a huge juggernaut in terms of the opportunity. And so many people abroad, as I've traveled, I don't know, to 20 plus countries over the last 15 years in this, you just see it everywhere. That's the language of opportunity. That's what parents want their kids to understand, and grandparents and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of emphasis on that.
And so tell me a bit about the people. So you must have come across so many interesting people in all your years freelancing. And so what type of ways are they earning on? What are they doing with that money, that extra cash?
Well, a lot of people like the idea of putting off the time until they have to tap their retirement funds. And this is fairly common, or they want to bank their Social Security or whatever it might be. That's a common reason to do this. A lot of people we work with want to work between 20% and maybe 40% of the time. They want to balance their life. We've talked about that all our life, and now is the opportunity to do that. And so that's how they use the money. Others use it for travel. Some pay to have their grandkids or invite people down when they're living abroad to wherever they are. It's kind of that. And of course, the story because we've written about it, is we had the one woman that came up to me after I gave a presentation and said, "Hey, have you got anything in there for me?" And the first question I ask is, "Tell me a little bit about what you did in your occupation." And she was a school teacher, taught English. And I said, "Are you good at proofreading?" And she said, "Yeah, I've been correcting papers for 30 some years." And I said, "Well, tell me how much you want to make." And she said, "I just need M&M money." And I'm thinking to myself, 50 cents, $1. I mean, how many M&Ms could she eat in a month? And she said, "Oh, no, that's my margaritas and massages." She just wanted to buy that little bit of extra, have that little bit of extra cash. And what she would do is she would start work at the beginning of the month and make her margarita and massage money, a few $100s, and then she would be done. And that's the way that some people choose to do freelancing, and then other people would tend to work more hours in a week, depending upon what their economic interest was. So that would be an example there.
And Chip is actually Chip is one of our correspondents based in Italy.
Sure.
And he came through your course, right? So he started off.
Yes, he came through our course and, had aspirations of moving abroad and working remotely and being able to spread his knowledge around the globe. And of course, the rest of the story is that he moved to Italy and has been there, I don't know, for 3 or 4 years now, and helping people around the world through his the work that he does.
Yeah. And so it seems like what you're saying is that most people have the skills to earn this way. Would you say that's true?
Yes.
It's something that people might not realize they have, but when they dig deep into their past experiences and past histories, there's something that they can do in this space.
Yes, absolutely. Very rarely do you find somebody that doesn't, just by virtue, we've all lived in a technology world. We all got on email 20 years ago. When we first started this, a lot of people coming into the program didn't have the technology skills, but now they do.
Yeah, and I presume you've seen a boom post-COVID with this way to earn.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a very important aspect of this. Every business, every nonprofit, every government agency, every organization of any kind has to make substantial changes right now. And they have to create new policies and procedures. They have to find new ways to market to their clients that no longer walk into their facility. They have to create new policies and procedures for their employees. So if you've ever created policies and procedures, that's kind of a boom area right now. And it's stunning because it's not just a few companies in an industry that have to change. It's, every business on the planet. And so that represents a significant amount of opportunity.
Yeah, and even on my Instagram feed, I am seeing coaching everywhere. Everywhere. Yes. Everyone seems to be looking at how they can use their skills to coach others.
Right. Yes. Coaching is extremely popular. I can remember when I first heard of coaching, gosh, it's been 30 years ago, and I knew somebody, an executive who hired a coach to do something, and I thought, wow, that seems excessive. And now a lot of times what people need in a coach is they need somebody with more experience than they have, more perspective, and they need somebody that sort of understands where the market is going, maybe by virtue of an industry they worked in or that kind of thing. And you don't necessarily have to know a lot, but you have to be a good sounding board for somebody. Just part of it is listening to them and finding out what they want to do, and then giving them kind of the pros and cons of doing one thing or another so they can make their own decisions.
And let's talk about money. How much money can people earn freelancing online?
Well, it varies substantially, but most people with kind of the white collar job can earn, start out modestly, because the first 6 to 8 jobs that you do on a network, we suggest that people find jobs they could do in their sleep and that kind of thing. That seems to charge the algorithm of all the various sites. Those companies want to know that you can satisfy a client. And once they're getting evidence that you know how to satisfy a client, then you have the opportunity to begin bidding on or tackling the more the higher paying jobs, and that can boost your hourly earning. There's a couple things to factor into this. When you're working remotely, of course, you don't have to have an extra car and insurance and wardrobe and half-hour commute each way every day. So that's good. So you want to take that into account. But since the pandemic, companies get that if they're going to get the work they want to get, that they're going to have to pay the fee for that expertise. And the more decades you have of doing stuff, the more expertise you have. So some people want to work 5 hours a week, maybe like the M&M teacher. And then there's other people that want to work 40 hours a week, full-time work. And so we see two groups. We see people that are, 50 up to the baby boomers typically want to work more hours a week and earn more. People in the baby boomers range want to work, sort of towards the more modest percentage of time working per week. So they're enjoying their life abroad or whatever it is, or even if it's going to visit the grandkids in the States or whatever it might be. So, that's that. Certainly people make $500 a month working part-time. Others make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 working full-time. So it's a full throttle opportunity if you want it. But I talked to somebody and said, well, I want to earn $100,000 a year. And I said, well, how much time a week do you want to work? And they said, I want to work 25% of the time. And that says, so you want to sort of earn at the rate of $400,000 a year, because 25% of that would provide you that 100,000. So you have to balance the amount of time you're going to work with what you're going to do, but it's certainly there. These systems too are transparent. So you can go in and see the earnings of other freelancers, and there are many people in there earning six figures, but there are also many people that are using this as a way, as we talked about before, to offset their expenses.
Right. And so every job is different. So some would charge per hour, some is per project. And then there's some that you would bid on, right? With how much you would do for it. So it varies.
Right. And our goal is to get you out of the bidding process as soon as possible. We want you to establish those repeat clients that you work with. And I've seen, a proofreading assignment turn into a $10,000 a year ongoing writing articles, proofreading, that kind of thing. So those are some of the ways that things change as you go through that.
And what advice would you give to someone who wants to get started on this? What's the first step they need to take?
Well, the first step is to create that profile. And we've got a great program for walking you through really the entire process. We have what we call a 7-step model that helps you create that profile, get set up on the system, learn how to use keywords to narrow the field of jobs that you want to work on, bid on those projects, and then cultivate repeat business. So it's a whole process, and that's what we walk people through.
Yeah, and so it seems like people earning this way have decided they're putting life first, that they're tuning their life how they want it. I mean, you're an example of that, right? You're living in beautiful Mexico.
Yes, no, and have now for the better part of 15 years. So it's go where you want, when you want, keep working if you want to, work as little or as much as you want or need. And it's a great way to work. And of course, the pandemic came along and educated every business, nonprofit, organization, that kind of thing, that you can get a lot of good work done. In fact, most of the surveys coming out of the pandemic show that for most jobs, they can be done remotely, and people are actually more productive in many cases.
Yeah, and I have to ask you something, Winton. In all the years I've known you, I've never asked you, but I need to know where you got your name, Winton Churchill.
Well, yes. A lot of times people says, is that your real name? And I've
stage name.
Yes, I've had it all my life. And it turns out that I'm a junior. And my father was born before Winston Churchill was famous in the United States. We never thought we were related because our part of the Churchills came here in the 1600s. And my grandfather was an automobile aficionado, as a lot of people were back in that time. And he named his son, my father, after a car called the Winton 6 that was manufactured by the Cleveland Motor Car Company that was ultimately sold to General Motors in the United States. And so it was a coincidence that my dad got the name because at the time Winston Churchill was the Exchequer, which would be like the Secretary of the Treasury in the UK. And with all the communication and networks we have today, I would challenge anybody to tell me who, without Googling it, who is the Exchequer today. That's usually below the level of what most people would be aware of. And so that's how I got the name, and I attribute it to cultivating my sense of humor, because you have to have a sense of humor when almost every day for all of your life, between 2 and 20 people ask you, where did that name come from?
I have the same problem, Winton.
Yes, of course.
Share that problem with you.
Right. So I encourage everybody to get their DNA test through. I was contacted by the Churchill Surname Project about 18 years ago now, and they asked me if I would take a DNA test. and they had a reference sample from the 1600s. And I took the test, and if you have 21 of 43 alleles, they call them, that are a match, that they say you're from that family. And I had 41 of 43, so I was the closest match there in that. And just shortly after that, I was invited to the Los Angeles chapter of the Churchill Society, and happened to meet Winston Churchill's granddaughter back then. And actually, she came and trained a number of our coaches when we did a training in London a number of years ago. And so as best as we can figure this out, I'm obviously not descended from Winston Churchill, but he and I are descended from a common ancestor. So that's kind of how the pieces fit together.
So interesting. I must do that. I wonder, am I related to Enzo Ferrari? Be great.
Yes, almost certainly. When you have what I would call a boutique name, I mean, Churchill is not that common a name. Ferrari is, I don't know, not that common a name in the circles that I bump into. So get that 23andMe and you could learn a lot.
Yeah, I must check it out. And so I want to finish all these interviews off with a quick this or that. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
We'll just whatever first comes to your head, okay?
Okay.
So, would you rather travel to time or travel through space?
I would rather travel through time.
Nice.
Because I'd love to go back and have dinner with Winston.
Of course. Yes. And coffee or chocolate?
Chocolate.
And
flavored coffee.
Chocolate.
Sorry.
Cheater.
Yes.
Would you rather sit next to a chatterbox on a plane or a crying baby?
Oh, chatterbox.
Chatterbox.
Yes, I have high tolerance for listening. I just love to hear people's stories, and that's what happens in my day when I'm talking to people that are considering different things around working online. Is the first thing I ask them is, tell me a little bit about yourself. And sometimes that's 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and it's always fascinating.
So you're telling me you're the chatterbox on the plane?
No, I listen to them. That's what I do. Is that I hear lots of good stuff, and usually my talking today is in the context of how can I work online, and it's only by listening to what somebody has done and their expertise. I mean, people forget that they work for a company or in an industry for a decade. Yeah. And I say, well, what did you do before you did that? And they said, oh, yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while, but I worked in the chemical industry and this is all the stuff I did. And that represents a whole new domain of knowledge that we can explore for the possibility of working online.
Yes, that lucky person getting to sit next to you, get their free coaching lessons.
That's right, whether they want it or not, especially during turbulence.
Oh, 100%. Keep the talking going. That's right. Hearing that.
Yeah.
Winton, thank you so much. It's so insightful chatting to you. And so you have a course, 21 days, that you've mentioned. So I'm going to link that below for anyone that's interested. There's also a second one called How to Earn with Researching. So I'll actually link that too for anyone that's interested. And so where can people find you online?
They can find me at barefootconsultants.com. And that's our website. Lots of good articles, free stuff on how to get started, how to think about this, and how to build your freelance business so you can travel around the world as you'd like and keep the money coming in along the way.
Keep the money rolling in from that sunny spot you dream of. I love it.
Yes.
Well, Winton, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your day, and I will see you soon.
Likewise, Lynn. Always interesting to have our conversation. So appreciate all the good questions.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Adios.
And there you have it, another episode of ILTV. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Be sure to hit the subscribe button below, turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos, and join me for next week's episode.